Wait, check this out.
I understand it, and I think there's never any judgment to it because we're talking about decades of frustration, and people want to know that life is going to be different moving forward. Look, I think you've heard it in the man's question from earlier, which is the fact that there have been a number of false dawns in this city when it comes to actually listening to tenants. I do not begrudge any tenant their frustration. If I had to pay out of my pocket for the services that my rent were supposed to be paying for, I too would have to see until I actually believed it. And the point, as you've heard from other elected officials here as well as myself, is that this is a new administration. This is an administration that makes very clear that there is no tolerance for impunity. It does not matter how many portfolios you own, how many buildings you have, how many times you have violated the law without any kind of consequence. We are going to hold those landlords accountable. And what I ask tenants here for is the continued voice that they have brought to the table, because part of the reason that we are standing before you is because tenants organized for this moment. And I know that it will, for some tenants, today is a beautiful day. For other tenants, I know it will be the day when the elevator works. For other tenants, it will be the day when they don't see a rat. For other tenants, it will be the day when they don't have to pay out of their pocket for a space heater. And all of that is understandable to me. And what I am proud of standing here alongside other elected officials is that we're not just announcing a dollar amount. We're talking about a chief restructuring officer, an immediate hiring of a property manager, the freezing of the landlord's accounts, the money that would have otherwise been taken away from tenants being now reinvested back into tenants' lives so that tenants can actually start to ask questions about their own lives and not about the lives that landlords should have been providing for a long time ago.
This was the first of 5 rental ripoff hearings scheduled from now through April. It was a full house, and slots for one-on-one sessions filled quickly.
No heat, no hot water, and the boiler wasn't working. I have water in my walls. I don't even know how that happened. Being heard is nothing compared to action for me, so we could sit here and talk all day. I'm sure everybody would feel good getting it off their chest, but a lot of people want actual action.
I believe that there are many very responsible landlords in the city who work very hard to improve living conditions in their building, and what we're trying to do is figure out how the system can be improved.
But some coalitions of landlords and property owners say these hearings are counterproductive.
You're dividing the city. You're dividing the city. You're not putting us together. Just the way they're having their voice heard, we need to have our voice heard as landlords.
So my starting to say is the mayor don't care about NYCHA because he proved over and over that he doesn't care about NYCHA.
City leaders say NYCHA tenants are welcome and that NYCHA officials were at the hearing.
We can write that sign a little better than that. My 5-year-old can write that sign better than that. And when they say NYCHA, if you don't know, NYCHA is the New York City Housing Authority, Section 8, stuff like that. I don't know. Y'all think this is a good thing or a bad thing? I think if he says he's going against bad landlords, I don't see nothing. I don't see a problem with that. Like, so if it's saying he's cracking down on bad landlords, right? Through historic fines, appointing independent monitors for neglected buildings, a $31 million penalty against Bronx landlords for severe housing violations that you just heard the young lady saying that she got water in her walls, and because of what we heard from New York rent, still is probably overpriced rent she's paying. His administration secured a record $31 million settlement against 2 Bronx landlords, Karen Singh and Raji Prasad, over unsafe living conditions, including vermin and lack of heat at Robert Fulton Terrace and Fordham Towers. Let's see, repairs using $900,000 from the landlord's own accounts. Let's see, conducting in-person outreach to tenants, particularly in rent-stabilized buildings in areas like East Harlem, to help them organize and report issues. And it focuses on owners listed on the public advocate's worst landlords list. I don't see nothing. If this helps the tenants of New York, as far as rent goes, because I think he realizes he can't just rent freeze like he ran on. I think he realized he can't just rent freeze. But if he can speak to tenants who talk about how bad their living conditions are for the overpriced rent that they pay, if he can help with that, I don't see that as a bad thing. And I get it. I'm not a owner of any apartments or houses or any of that. But if these people are on the worst landlord list for right reasons, I mean, like if there are horrible or less than adequate living conditions with overpriced rent, I think that is a problem. So if this can even be the motivation for them to change it and become better landlords, and I'm not sure if it'll actually do something for the actual rent prices, but if it can at least increase the living conditions, for these overpriced rent prices in New York, then I think that at least would be something. I don't really see that as a bad thing if he's going over talking about how like landlords, penalties and fines not being paid for so long, what I'm saying, going after them and stuff like that for that kind of stuff. I don't see that as a problem. Um, if what he's doing actually helps the New York City tenants over the landlords, then I don't have a problem with that if it's helping the people, helping the tenants. Um, this may be the one thing he's done so far that I agree with. Um, so if it works and it helps out the people of New York City, the tenants to be exact, I don't see a problem with it. And I know a lot of people, you got people who say they're not far right and they really are. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to give nobody no credit, and or if they are a owner of any kind of business or a landlord of any sort, they like to say how bad this is or whatever because they're going to speak from a owner's perspective or a landlord perspective. But speaking from a tenant's perspective, if like you're like that young lady, like I said, who says she has water in her walls and it's creating terrible living conditions, or people who live with rats and what I'm saying, all around in they apartments and homes or whatever in New York, I'm like, then yeah, something needs to be done. And if the landlords weren't doing anything about it and they're on a worst landlord list, then yeah, why not push them? Why not do something? You know what I mean? I'm like, nothing makes somebody change something like a lawsuit. You know what I mean? Like in a settlement that they lose. So, I mean, hey, do it. I mean, and this is not him, obviously taxing the rich. Obviously, he got a whole nother plan for that. But if he can make, as far as the tenants in New York City go, make their lives a little better, I don't see there being a problem with that. So, if it's something that would work, I hope it works. For the tenants of New York City. I hope it works, and I hope this makes the city and the landlords fix a lot of the living situations for a lot of people in New York City. I hope so. So I don't really see this as a L for Mamdani, and I know a lot of people were, frustrated and yelling things at him at the first video at the press conference he held, but he's a great talker. I mean, we can all admit that. Mamdani is a great talker. You know what I mean? And we were just going to see if he was going to do anything. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of things he ran on, he haven't done. So I think that's a L. But I think if he can make at least the living situations better for tenants in New York City, I think he's, what I'm saying, that he's on the right step with that. And like, slumlords and stuff like that. I think he's on the right track with that. So, I mean, if he started doing everything else that he, promised in his campaign and everything, I think he'll be golden. But I'm not a fan of Mamdani still, but I don't see this as a bad thing. You know what I mean? I hope it works out. And if it does work out, then you got to give him his credit if it does work out and it actually makes the living situations for tenants in New York City better. I mean, you got to give him that credit. Obviously, you can still hold him accountable because I don't think he's going to be able to freeze rent, but I think it won't be a bad thing. I'm like, if he can make the live living situations better for New York City residents. So I don't know. We'll just have to see what he does. You know what I'm saying? Let me know what you think about what he's trying to do with the landlords and the tenants in New York City down in the comment section. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Till next time, y'all. I'm out.
I feel like I'm good on my own. Don't need nobody beside me.